Hello, my name is Ethan Chazen. I am a New York-based organizational development coach, and today's training session is on leadership, and more specifically, how to unleash the transformational leader within you. So let's dive right into today's training session. The important thing to understand about leadership is that it's comprised of a core set of critically important characteristics. And the whole question of nature, nurture, are they in you or can be cultivated? I'm personally of the camp that believes that it's both, that there are certain traits and attributes that are just inside of you, but others can be learned, which is why today is a helpful training session on how to cultivate that collective set of characteristics and qualities that exhibit superior leadership. So let's talk about what those characteristics are. Those characteristics are natural curiosity, the desire to solve problems or the interest in solving problems, critical thinking skills, the ability to be intrinsically or self-motivated, but also be compassionate, empathetic, and caring about other people so that you can also bring the best out of them as well. It requires a sense of a strong moral compass and the ability to work well in teams. So if you think about the totality of these superhero characteristics and qualities, it becomes very clear that when we're building an organizational culture comprised of leaders, we look for in our talent acquisition the kinds of skills, attributes, behaviors that these leaders exhibit, and then we can train them certain nuanced aspects of the role that we're hiring them for, but we don't hire for roles and responsibilities, old way of thinking about job description, as we do hiring for leadership traits and characteristics. So I hope that makes sense. Let me kind of share with you the distinction between managing and leading. Managing is 20th century. It's a vestige from the old pyramid-shaped command control organization that was required in manufacturing and industrial age. It's dead. It died in the 21st century. Management, whether you take the Latin word mano agere or the French management, it's about control. That's what management is intended to achieve. Control over your employees, control over the work they do, how they do it, who they do it with, and where they do it. That's gone in the 21st century in a global, virtual, dispersed workplace, especially after the global pandemic. We require a new model. A model predicated on leadership. Leadership is less about controlling people and holding them accountable for the work. Leadership is about caring, trust, serving, empathy, and the desire, the strong desire to rise. A rising tide lifts all boats, to rise everybody up around you, to be a coach, a mentor, a confidant. That's what leadership is in the 21st century. And if you are struggling to understand the distinction, well, it's not semantics. The distinction between managing and leading is really reflections on how your organization thinks about the responsibility it has for its employees, for sure, but also the extent of the relationship. It's critically important you understand this. Organizations that are still built on pyramid control, organizational structure, reporting in, performance management reviews, they're dead and they don't know it yet. Organizations that in the 21st century have or are transforming are predicated on building a strong culture of leadership. So let's dive into that. It's important to understand also that the word leadership doesn't mean anything in and of itself. There's different styles of leadership. None are better or worse than the others. There are times when a certain style of leadership, there are certain organizations and a certain stage of an organization's life, that one style is more suitable than another. So think about the totality of all the styles of leadership, and that'll help you understand that leadership is not one finite state of existence or behavior. Autocratic leadership. This is what it sounds like. I'm in control. Do what I say. If you don't like the direction that we're going in, that's great. Go find another opportunity in another organization. The autocrat does not solicit feedback. It's not a contributing culture. It's not a democratic or participative endeavor. Autocratic is follow me. I know the way. We're going this way. Do what I say and do how I say to do it, or find something else. The bureaucratic organization is structured on levels of administrative reporting and command control. It's about processes, policies, procedures, maybe in a heavily regulated environment, or maybe in a very complex, global, thousands and thousands of disparate parts brought together to assemble something. Maybe it's in a multi-country contract or partnership. A bureaucratic culture of leadership is predicated on doing the right thing, following established conventions and processes. The charismatic leadership style is just that. It's a moth drawn to a flame. The charismatic leader, when they walk into a room, all conversation stops, people gravitate to them. They understand, or in their core being, understand how to manipulate others' behaviors. They're attractive. They're high energy. They're very loquacious. They have strong communication skills. They may or may not have sociopathic tendencies. They may be narcissists. But the charismatic leader is all about bringing other people to them. They are a magnet, a cult of personality. The next style of leadership is called democratic or participative. The democratic leader wants to solicit input from everybody, almost to the detriment of quick decision making. And oftentimes, there can bog down in this style of leadership the ability to make decision making in a quick and timely fashion. The democratic participative leader feels most fulfilled and engaged as a leader when she or he or they are bringing all oppositional viewpoints from the team. Everybody's voice should matter, introvert or extrovert. The transformational leader is what this program is about and how you become a transformational leader. The transformational leader is the kind of individual who changes the organization, changes people's lives, has that kind of deep-seated, very critical involvement or impact in changing the prevailing culture of the organization. They don't subscribe to rules or normal convention. Their desire, their legacy is to change the way the world works. And when it's phrased in that way, you can understand that transformational leaders are incredibly powerful because they change everything and everyone around them for the better. They are what's required to navigate through transformational times. They're the ones who seek out conflict. They seek out chaos. They live very comfortably in a world of ambiguity and uncertainty. The laissez-faire or delegative manager is comfortable with other people going over their heads. They don't take ownership. They're not hardly ever accountable. The laissez-faire manager, not leader, manager takes no responsibility. They're willing to get out of the way of their people. If their people want to pursue something and take initiative, they're comfortable saying, go right ahead, I won't stop you. But if their people ever struggle or fail or hit barriers, the laissez-faire delegative manager will say, I warned you not to proceed. I informed you of the consequences. You're on your own now. The next style of leadership is what we call people or relations oriented. These are truly the people who subscribe to relationship and engagement molecule wars. They're most fulfilled when they're bouncing off of other people. Sounding board. It's in the 1980s, we called it management by walking around. The people who physically could not be anchored to their office or their desk. They were most fulfilled when they were water coolering, when they were walking around, engaging, talking, finger on the pulse. People relations oriented are all about building the relationships amongst their peers and their team members because they understand that in order to achieve success, you have to cultivate relationships. They're not very good at doing the small talk. They're not very good about cracking the whip. They need socialization. They need the humanistic engagement. We are human animals. They need that behavior. The servant leader is all about service, and it doesn't get any more complicated than that. They're the kinds of individuals who feel most fulfilled and intrinsically motivated when they're doing for others. They have a strong moral compass that shines to a northern light of help, of caring, of abrogating or putting their own responsibilities or needs a distant second to the primary needs of the people around them. They are phenomenal consensus builders. Task-oriented, it's just that. It's people who need the spreadsheets. They need the list of daily to-dos, and then they have their weekly to-dos, and they're checking off their lists, and they're very good at linear ways of thinking about priority A, B, C, D. They don't do well in an unstructured environment, but boy, when you have pre-existing processes, procedures, ways of getting things done, they can drill through, and they're all about the sense of accomplishment pertaining to a mission of getting things done. They don't like to leave work untended. The transactional leader is all about making things get done. It's not at a relationship level. The classic phrase of the transactional leader is it's not personal, it's just business. They're all about accomplishing work, getting things done. Having said that, years ago, I came across a model, and the model just resonated with me. And in short, it's a 4P model. And the 4Ps are very specific that in totality, these 4 ways of thinking about ethics create an ethical model of leadership behavior. The first is purpose. What's our calling? And if you think about your organization in terms of vision, mission, values, our purpose is, what are we here for? Planet, the greening. And this is especially important as we see a transformation in the composition of the workforce as matures and boomers are leaving the workforce, tens of thousands every day. And the new 21st century workforce is being reconstituted with the majority of millennials and Gen Zs who care about environmental protection and safeguards for the future generations. People. Ethics is predicated in a moral sense of behavior is we go from shareholder value to stakeholder value. So instead of the focus of the business enterprise being on a return on investment or monthly and quarterly and annual financial performance, in the 21st century, shareholder value is delivering the most value to all the groups of individuals who interact with your organization, starting with your employees and your clients, but then vendors, partners, suppliers, contractors, the media, regulatory agencies, all people. And then the last P in the 4P model, the ethical approach to leadership, is what we call probity. And probity is just a big word, but it's all about doing well in the world. Probity is the manifestation of genuine caring. And that's a really interesting model to apply. Now, I've had people in banks and financial services and hedge funds and private equity, and it's every permutation of this is ridiculous. Actually, regardless of what your business model is, the stakeholders, the individuals you interact with are looking for a whole new world of ethical behavior. So my question for you is, now that we've talked through a bunch of different stylistic approaches to leadership, who are you? Where do you fall on a spectrum of 2 various considerations on your matrix? One is, are you transactional, getting work done and just taking care of business, versus on the other end of the continuum, the spectrum is the transformational leader on the x-axis? And then vertically, do you go from being a highly democratic, participative individual all the way up to autocrat? Where are you? Be honest. And if you're not sure, and you have people in your life who love you and care about you and want to see you succeed, maybe they're peers, former bosses, people who were direct reports to you, people that you worked in volunteer engagements, ask them to pinpoint you. So leadership is what's needed nowadays. And I coach and I train on this all the time, but let me break it down for you. Down. No organization ever navigated through turbulent times, ever got through significant challenge through management. It's all about leadership. It's about unleashing the collective untapped potential of all your people. It's a mindset shift as well as an organizational shift from me first to we're in it together. You know, You know this though. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So what this model of leadership is predicated on, and I've been doing this for 15 years now, and there's no way around it. It's about finding the best people who exhibit most of those attributes of genuine superhero leadership, bring them in and give them the tools, the direction, the resources, the coaching, the training, the mentoring, the caring, rewarding, recognizing, work-life balance, health and wellness, all the stuff that they demand from you. Get out of the way and watch the magic happen. The learning organization, I've come to a set of beliefs based on 35 years in the workforce, and that's this. Training in and of itself isn't enough. And many organizations use it as a little kind of box on the checklist of we've done the minimum that supposedly demonstrates our caring for our people. It's not enough to train. Training is meaningless. It's by and of itself. It's great if you do on-the-job training to teach them the basic roles and responsibilities, but it goes deeper. You have to rethink your approach to your people. The learning organization understands a fundamental truism that there are three levers your organization can pull to exact meaningful change: strategy, operations, people. Strategy can fall out of favor in the marketplace. It can be the wrong strategy because you didn't anticipate things. Operations, efficiency, effectiveness, that'll change constantly with technology. Your people are your only lasting competitive advantage. So how do you go about finding, hiring, rewarding, recognizing, motivating, promoting the best people and keeping them to build a future generation and next generation leadership? It requires genuine leadership now to all the people in your organization. And it's giving up on the false notion of management, which is we have to control our people. They're not, it's the whole Douglas McGregor XY theory. In theory X, it was people are basically lazy. They want to do the least possible, and you have to carrot and you have to stick them to get them to move. Versus theory Y, people care about the success of your organization. They want to get ahead. They want to advance themselves. So in that regard, in the learning organization of the 21st century, the onus of responsibility is yours to do everything in your power to put people in positions of success. It's what Carol Dworkin called a growth mindset. So what is it about leadership? Is it a certain set of skills or traits? Well, don't label it. That's the best advice I can give you. People say, oh, it's that vision thing. Leaders see the future when others can't. They see a path forward. They're comfortable in an absolutely chaotic and transformational period of time because they have the ability to navigate through, because they have a passion for what your organization does. They have a passion for success for all, and they have a conviction that this is the right way. They also, I have found, possess truly transformational leaders, a sense of humor about the world and life. They're adaptable, flexible, whatever you want to say. They're not stuck in preconditioned, previously formed patterns of behavior. If it works, great, keep doing it. How do we tweak it? If it doesn't, stop doing it. Classic definition of insanity. They're willing to not only deal with change, but they feel very comfortable in a change environment as we find ourselves in. Certainly, the best leaders have a certain base level of expertise in the technology, but in conjunction with grit, They stick with it. They see it through. They're compassionate. They are above reproach. They behave with the dictate of be honest at all times. They're willing to quote unquote fail because they're willing to put themselves out there to take risks, and they're also capable of learning and instilling that set of discipline in others. It is almost, if you think about it, a artistic creativity to invent stuff, but to reinvent oneself regularly. Let me just sidebar. I hear this all the time. Our people are our greatest asset. Bull. People are not assets. It's beneath human dignity to make people feel they're just a part of a cog in a machine. People are assets? No, that's a false 20th century management way of thinking about people as expenses. You know, our payroll is our largest expense. People are not expenses. Are you insane? People are your only lasting competitive advantage. Assets depreciate or lose value over a period of time until the value is gone and they need to be replaced, downsized. People are your greatest single lasting competitive advantage. And as such, employees don't cost you. Employees must be invested in. So leaders are always thinking about themselves in relation to others in the world at large. So there's a term in marketing, SWOT, which I apply when I do leadership training and development. It's your internal sense of being as a leader, your strengths and your challenges or weaknesses. And then externally, what are opportunities and threats? I advise my clients and we work together every month to revisit your career and professional development. And part of what we do on a monthly basis or quarterly at a minimum, quarterly, is we revisit our own career trajectory through a SWOT analysis. Strengths, what's inside of us that makes us unique and valuable, memorable, your brand. Weaknesses or challenges, maybe you don't know a certain software. Maybe you lack a certain ability to communicate. Maybe you're not familiar with certain regulatory changes. So those strengths and weaknesses combined are how are you doing right now in terms of being a lifelong learner and prepared to succeed in the chaos and uncertainty of the future. Opportunities, are you quick to move, quick in decision making? If you think about it, almost autocratic. Or are you very slow? You subscribe to the democratic, participative way of leadership. And threats, when things externally happen, how capable are you, adaptive and flexible, of navigating around and charting a different course? There's something that's come up right around the time that I started my consulting about 15 years ago, but it actually evolved well before then. In fact, in the 21st century, we demand to strip away layers of bureaucracy, that old way of thinking at that command control pyramid, and make a flatter, more matrix organization to allow decision making more liberally across the organization. So control, which used to be at the top and towards the middle, is now gone. The people who are your frontline staff, closest to your clients, closest to the way work is done, they should be the ones to lead themselves. So get those managers out of your organization, retrain them on more humanistic, non-technical skills. But the organization of the future must enable your people to lead themselves. And it's incumbent upon you as an organization and a leadership team, and as maybe a person who currently has people under their charge, to disseminate control and information and allow people to have the ability to have autonomy in their work. So next up is delegation. It's science and art. So why do we do this? We do it because it builds trust in the people who are looking to us for career and professional development and leadership. We also, if you think about this from a talent acquisition, talent management perspective, when you hire the best and the brightest, we talked about those superhero characteristics, there should not be any fear or concern that they cannot handle the transfer of responsibility and ownership of work. But what has to happen, and often doesn't, in the organizations subjectively that I've encountered, the over 500 that I've coached and consulted with, there is not, as there's a delegation, a coaching, mentoring to make sure that that work is well received. And that needs to happen. Next up, you need to constantly re-architect an individual's performance management planning process. Every time they inherit new work, that needs to be adequately reflected, captured, and in consideration when they're being assessed objectively on their performance. How to do it, when to do it. You choose things that need to be delegated. On one part, it's a reactive basis. It's as needed. So as situations or threats, opportunities present themselves, you can delegate. But in advance of that, it's a 365-day a year initiative where you're looking at your people and you're saying, where are they currently? What's their career plan? What are the skills, certifications, training that they're going to need to have? And then how do you time that strategically in advance so that you can actually delegate work that puts your people in the maximum position of being successful in taking that work on. If something is a task that you're going to say, I should just do it myself, it's easier, or if it's going to come up again and again, you should consider delegating it to your team. Is it something that you have to have ownership of? Because remember, as you delegate, you're backfilling for yourself where you see yourself going. Because remember, leaders are intrinsically motivated. You're driven as a leader to position yourself for success in the future. So that means you constantly have to be learning, which means you can't keep doing the same work. It's a cycle. It's a virtuous cycle of increasing ownership of responsibility for yourself and others. One part of delegation that I've often encountered when I monitor and audit teams and watch leaders behaving with their direct reports is you give the work and then it comes back to you. Somebody comes back and says, I don't know. Create ground rules, meaning when you delegate the work, you're going to ensure, maximize the likelihood that they can succeed at it. But when they come back, gently push back. When they say, I'm not sure how to do it, say, well, what are the options? If you did this or this, what are the pros of that and what are the cons? Now, for those three different approaches, prioritize them in terms of the scale of practicality, the ability to get it done, the cost. But discipline other people to have that thought process about, if I'm not sure how to approach this, I've done a little bit of further investigation. So you're teaching them. When they say teach a person to fish, they'll never be hungry. But if you give them a fish, they'll eat it and they'll be hungry later. That's akin to the way to think about delegation. And I've mentioned it before. Every month, you should have your own personal performance review. How am I doing? What were my goals for the year and the quarter? It's the end of the month. Where should I be? What's happened? Was I successful? Yes, great. Why? Did I achieve a subpar level of performance? What happened? What prevented me? And what can I do to change that? The most powerful leaders are those who hold themselves to the highest standard. Because once you do this and pattern behavior, you train yourself to do this with yourself, you are now capable of having meaningful coaching and mentoring with other people who report to you. So I want to thank you for taking the time out of your crazy busy schedules to hear a little bit of my mindset about transformational leadership. It's a very, very critical aspect of success in the 21st century. Having said that, if you want to talk a little bit more about how this applies to you, maybe your organization, there's a number of ways to reach out to me. You can go through my website, email me, Ethan@the Group, just send me a text message or call me. The other thing is, I want to share with you that there's a ton of practical guidance and advice in these other videos on my YouTube channel. So go there, check it out. If you like what you see, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the next training and development program here at Chasing the Dream and the Chasing Group. Thank you for checking in today.